Welcome back to Rust About Love. I'm Kathy.
I'm Samantha.
And we're your hosts for these conversations about life, love, and relationships for those over 50. What's on tap today, Samantha?
Natalie, the matchmaker. I'm really excited to hear about, I've never actually really talked with the matchmaker, so I'm excited to hear about the matchmaking process, what's involved, so our listeners can kind of pro and con for themselves if this is something they'd like to do.
Yeah, it's a good conversation. We will also include her contact info in the show notes. So if you decide you want to reach out to Natalie, you can do so. Enjoy the conversation.
So we have a matchmaker with us, which is, I'm really fascinated. I work a lot in the Orthodox community, and they utilize a matchmaker oftentimes as a way to get married. And so I'm just interested in this concept. So can you just maybe jump in and share with us what the matchmaking process is? You know, what is your job specifically? How do you become a matchmaker? I'm a therapist, but maybe I would love to be a matchmaker personally.
And please introduce yourself, Natalie.
Yes, absolutely. My name's Natalie. I am a matchmaker with It's Just Lunch, and it is so fascinating. There is this is the definition of never a dull day, never a dull moment. I mean, we're dealing with complex human beings and then throw in the most vulnerable area of one's life. I could never get sick of it. So I liken it to, when I'm working with my clients, I am I'm trying to find their puzzle piece. Right. So everybody is their own kind of shaped puzzle piece. And, you have to try to fit the other piece in to see, well, maybe this doesn't fit quite right, to then find the best fit. So as I'm working with my clients, I'm getting to know them uniquely. I'm sending them out on dates, and then I'm learning from their feedback from those dates, what's the next best match. And I'm able to determine that because there is a spectrum to every quality under the sun, right? So someone might tell me they want someone active. Well, that's going to mean completely different things to different people.
So technically you're working for both halves, right? Your clients are both parts of the equation. And so what you just have like files of what kind of, what's the intake? Like what information are you working with? Yeah.
Well, lucky for me, I have a good memory for people. Ask me to go from point A to point B, a location I've been 20 times. I can't do it without my GPS, but I'm great with people and remembering very specific details. So everything is through an intake of questions that I ask. And, there's specific questions that I ask that really allow for me to get to the core of who someone is, so that I can get ahead of some of the not so great dates that I've learned over the years can happen if, I send them out with this type of person when they tell me this, type of response. So a lot of it's been trial and error, and over the years, just understanding we're all a lot more similar than we may realize. But everything is by memory. But of course, I've got the quantifiable information there, their parameters, their preferences. But most of this is intuition coupled with what I recall and remember from their intake.
How long have you been a matchmaker?
5 years.
5 years. Wow. And then I wanted to ask, I was curious, how is your questionnaire different than, say, like me just logging on to eHarmony and going through there, right? Don't they? I've never been on eHarmony, but my understanding is they have like all these different questions.
Well, I'm not sure what eHarmony's questions look like. So
well, allegedly they're like personality tests.
Yeah, I think it's personality traits.
That's what they say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I always tell my clients, we learn as we go. Like, again, their date feedback is additional data points that a dating site doesn't allow for, right? You can't go on a date with Tom and, maybe you like this about him, but this didn't work out. Match.com can't take that information and produce a better aligned match. So yes, I'm laying a foundation and a framework for them, and then I'm going from there.
So, what was some of the funniest date feedback or most helpful date feedback you
Goodness
received?
gracious. I wish I prepared for that one.
Sorry, and that's just off the cuff because you're right, Natalie. Like that's a fascinating piece that I've never thought about. Like having someone that I would work with personally and give them all my date feedback because that's kind of Kathy's role in my life. Kathy's kind of my matchmaker,
Right.
but she probably gives me very different feedback than you would. So
Yeah.
I'm just kind of
Sure.
curious what.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I've got a bird's eye view, right? Like I've got a lot of contrast to be able to say, okay, you're giving me this feedback, but I see I've set up similar dates, right? And they've given me that feedback. So what's
Yeah,
really going
that's the
on here?
missing link. Their
Yep,
feedback. Yeah.
yep, yep. So it's that, right? It's the feedback that's coming up on them, but it's also feedback that this client tends to receive. So this just doesn't seem like a them problem. This seems like a you problem.
Yes.
Or just things like that. Feel like, did I even answer your question? I
Yeah, no,
didn't.
you
You
did.
wanted specifics.
But now, no, I don't need specifics, but then it brings up another question for me, Natalie. So when it becomes a you problem, right? Like as let's say
Mm.
I'm your client and you're like, oh, Samantha, I'm getting a lot of feedback about you. Like, do
Oh
people
man.
have a hard time hearing that?
Those
Or do
those
they?
are the tough conversations. Yeah. Sometimes they go very poorly. Yep.
Yeah.
But they've also gone really well. Sometimes
Yeah.
I've had to give them that bitterness, right? That for them to get the sweetness. Because if I just didn't give them the truth and constructive criticism, the chances of them getting success in their love life as a result of that, withholding really important, valuable information from them, for me, it's not about me. So I can take myself out of that. I don't love having those conversations. I never want to hurt someone's feelings or damage their confidence. And so I definitely have ways of delivering that information to, make it a little bit more digestible.
Yeah, no, I trust you. You seem kind. Yeah.
But it seems like it's important. It would be important to give that feedback. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And something too, right? Like am I would say often, like, I'm coming from the place of here's how I've gotten to know you from our conversations. And I'm not seeing that in the state feedback. So what's going on
Yeah.
here?
Oh,
Do
I
you
love that.
feel like you're presenting in this way on these dates? If
Mm.
not, what can we do
Mm.
to give a more authentic, representation?
But so I'm curious, like you've been doing this for 5 years. What kind of training do you have to get to be a matchmaker? Maybe I'll
Oh my
ditch
gosh.
the therapy and just start doing this. I don't know.
you can hire
Maybe,
Samantha to give the feedback.
No, I don't want that.
yeah, right.
That's after you said that, Natalie. I'm like, I don't know if I want. That's a very difficult thing for even me to do.
Yeah. Well, there is no Matchmaker University.
There is not. Oh
So
shoot. Okay.
no, there's not. So again, I have come to learn that I didn't know this about myself until I got going with this, but I have a unique cocktail of qualities that allow for me to be really good at this job. And so I'm not sure. I mean, a lot of it is just qualities that I have like innately, as well as learning and having that more objective point of view of this kind of client typically is going to need this type of match. And then we kind of, fine tune from there. I've had to learn types of approaches that work for different personality types. Luckily, I found the right thing for me. Took a lot of trial and error previous to that and learning, learning a lot. I have incredible colleagues. I work with women who have been in the industry for far longer than I have. So I just asked a lot of questions and still do.
So the matchmaking outfit you work for is here in our city. How many matchmakers are there for Ballpark who are working here in this area
Yep.
in your
Yep.
space?
So
Yeah.
so we've got a few different cities that
Mhm.
we work within. So some clients will want to utilize that regional feature.
Okay.
So those are hand selected matches across our whole ecosystem.
Okay.
So I would say, all across the board, if I had to, goodness, I mean, we've got 60.
60. Wow. Okay. Interesting.
What's the client demographic?
Yes. Yeah. So obviously our podcast is geared toward people over 50. So, so
Yeah.
curious, what percent or whatever of our age people are utilizing the services?
Well, I'm not certain on an exact
Yeah,
percent.
that's fine.
We definitely cater to clients of, all ages. I would say generally the youngest around 25, the oldest 75. I even have a gentleman who I just got started with who's 80, right? So it's a living, breathing, changing thing, right? If I have opportunity for them, they're a good fit for my current clientele, the capacity in which I'm able to work with them, that would, allow for me to get them started. Anybody over 50, I mean, I always say that's the sweet spot, 50s to 60s. That's really for my service at It's Just Lunch. Because these are individuals who are, at a later point in their life, right? This is an unforeseen relationship status. They didn't imagine they'd be single, and, they're working professionals. Maybe they've got great job stability, financially, they're good. So they're more prone to outsourcing important areas of their life. So I would say that 50s to 60s is really an awesome age range for us.
What do you suggest? Like, what do you think people over 50 are looking for in these dates?
Definitely depends on the client. Generally, the types of clients I'm working with are professionals. They're typically looking for an emotional companion partner, right? Something that's longer term, something that is stable, someone that they enjoy the company of, but is also independent on their own, because at this point in their life, they've pretty much, this is who I am. So there's not going to be a whole lot of, changing fundamentally who you are for a relationship. Like maybe those days are behind them. So yes, I would say just something that is flexible.
All right. So what do you define as success? Like, how would you define success in your business? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So for me, it's all about one's chances of finding a, compatible relationship. So if I can determine that a client's chances are going to be far higher by working with myself and my team than continuing to do what they've been doing, then that right there is they're on the way to success. Now, success is going to take hold like in different shapes and forms, right? That could be marriage. That could be somebody meeting the love of their life and having, building a family. That could be their first long-term relationship ever, their first boyfriend or girlfriend ever. That could be their first date after widowed, and they met their late wife or husband when they were 15, right? So success looks different for everyone, but for me, it's plain and simple. If I can provide you an experience that's better than the one that's led you here, that's success.
That sounds nice, actually.
Yeah, it does. And it just made me think. So you've been doing this for 5 years, Natalie. How many people have you helped find some level of that success that you defined?
Goodness. Yeah, Samantha, I couldn't even tell you.
So
Couldn't even tell you.
Over 100?
Way over,
Wow.
way over.
Have you ever been invited to a wedding? Not that the wedding is the end game, but I was just curious if like people, because clients express gratitude to me in very different ways. And so I was wondering, like, have you ever been invited to someone's commitment ceremony?
A lot of my partners have been. So I think we're kind of getting to that point, right? Because I would say my first year, I didn't have as much success in that way. My second year, I was like, okay, we're kind of getting it. My third year, I was like, whoa, like this is great. A lot of clients are having success. And again, that's why it goes back to the trial and error of setting my clients up for success, right? Because the expectations that I set for them and the ways that I talk with them and get them, to hold up the mirror a little bit, that
Yeah.
is going to determine them enjoying their experience and retaining them as a client until they meet that right person, which looks different for everyone. So I've got a lot of long-term relationships right now. We're hearing about engagements of clients that I personally brought on and, matched. So maybe soon. I don't know. Just fun to see the pictures.
Okay. So walk us through the process. So if we signed up for this, how does it, can you explain like from the initial conversation to going on a date, or actually beyond the going on the date, because obviously there's feedback involved too?
Yeah. So initial conversation, I just like to kind of get a feeling for what's been going on, what led them here. So how have they been meeting people? What's been the challenge with meeting the right person? What's their frequency of going out on quality dates? So that I can kind of diagnose a solution here. Yeah, that's the first thing. I want to get an understanding of what's been missing. Is there anything here with them that maybe we can take a look at? We do have professional coaches as well as matchmakers that do an even deeper dive than what I do. It's more just all encompassing. Just getting a sense of what might make the most sense. And some clients are going to have more rigid criteria than others. Knowing my client base like the back of my hand, I think I'm going to also be thinking ahead of what membership makes the most sense for this client, given what they're bringing to the table, what they're looking for, and what my client base looks like. I also, having been doing this for a while, I know kind of what's typical of the demographic. So sometimes I know right away I can't work with this person at all, right? I'm just never going to be able to satisfy a membership for what they're looking for. So
because their expectations are so high or so low?
So high, right? So very specific and particular, I mean, you could kind of connect the dots in that way, I would think. Let's just take a woman that's 65. Okay. She only wants to meet a man who is 6'4" with a full head of hair and an advanced degree. Right. I mean, right there, we're already like, we're kind of out of luck.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, hold on a second.
Do you find people have those clear expectations or definitions or guidelines of what they're looking for?
That's kind of an exaggeration.
Yeah.
That, I mean, I've certainly had people younger that have shared that's what they're looking for. And even still, I can't do that. Right. No, I can't do that consistently, right? Yeah. That's what we're looking at is consistency. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely people that have really specific criteria, and that's why I talk with them about that. I don't have a magic wand where I'm making people in a back room. So I have to, expand on that. Like, what is really that about? Because sometimes there's underlying reasons for it, right? If it's the 6'4" guy, she wants to be with someone confident, assertive, and strong. He doesn't actually need to be 6'4". Yeah. So we got to break that down. And usually that's part of the fun, right? Is getting them to a place of openness and realizing, oh, okay. Yeah. Like, I guess I would be open to that and meeting someone like that.
Yeah, that's pretty insightful of you, Natalie. Yeah, it's not about the 6'4", it's about these other things. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So then you've got the information about her and or him, and then what? They're ready to go.
Not quite. Then I making sure that I can work with this client, right? I see opportunity for them. Then I am sharing with them the membership that I would get them started with. So we have different capacities in which we work with our clients with different tools customizable to that client. So from there, I would interview them, assuming that they are on board with the service and what we've discussed. The interview is really where I'm fine-tuning all their preferences. This is really where I'm getting to know who they are. So their personality, the personalities that they click with best. I want to know what they find physically attractive, their lifestyle, their hobbies, their interests, their vision for that type of relationship that they desire. I mean, I could go on. There's a lot more to it. But from there, assuming that I have, let's just take this woman, for example, I have men in that moment that I like for her, I can introduce her to, and I like them for her too, right? These are mutual matches. Then I would get her started, and I have a team that would begin coordinating those dates.
So, okay. Does this all happen in a time frame, or do you just, someone might show up and say, I'm good. If you, in the next year or something, if you find 5 great men for me, I'll go on a date, or whatever it might be. Or is it, I mean, I suppose everybody's different. People are like, I want to meet somebody in the next month. And some people are like, I want to wait for the right person. So do you just got to keep people on a back burner kind of, or?
Well, so if I'm getting someone started, it's because I have matches available to them that are engaged and also wanting to meet someone. So from there, we're getting them started. And something like this, again, it's like, this is a matter of timing as well, because I'm going to continue to bring on new men for this woman. So in the future, I will be working on her behalf as well in future conversations with new men. So I'm also partly like a recruiter.
That's what I was wondering. Like, do you go out and like try, like you meet someone and he's single or she's single, and are you like, hey, you know what? I have this person. I think, come on, you should come in and try and meet them. Like, are you always thinking about this, or
try to shut it off? I'm not great at shutting it off. But I mean, I think about it a lot. Yeah, I really do. Very passionate about it. So it's hard not to think about it. I think mostly, it's through my company, we get a lot of singles inquiring about the service on the day-to-day. So not as much of me going outside of what's already coming my way. That keeps me busy enough.
So what are the fees involved? So like if I wanted, I've been on these dating apps, I decide, okay, you know what, this isn't working for me. I am interested. What's the membership going to cost me roughly?
I mean, that would really vary.
I probably need a coach. I probably need all of it.
Well,
the big package.
So yeah, it's going to vary, right? Depending on the tools that client needs to be successful, because we can have, we also have wardrobe styling, date coaching. The reason we're so successful is that everyone that works with us is equally invested in finding the right person, but those tools and add-ons are going to vary.
But so is it a monthly fee, or is it a one-time fee, or how does it?
There are different models as well. So again, if depending on what that client is looking for, if they are, they're very open, and maybe I have a lot of clients that would be excited to meet someone like them, I might be able to work with that client open-ended. For others, I may, depending on if it's a bit more specific, I cannot necessarily guarantee what my client base is going to look like, let's just say a year from now. Then I would probably stick with working with them in time increments. So for instance, 6 months at a time.
Going back to the whole process. So people arrange for the dates? You guys set up the date?
Yes, we do. So I have a whole team here that takes care of juggling our clients' availability and their schedules, and we know where they work, where they live, and we find a convenient middle point and make reservations under both of their first names. Yep.
Okay. And then they go on the date, and then what?
And the expectation is they pay for their own dates, or who pays for the date?
So those are separate checks. Yep. That when we're making the reservation, we, share that with the restaurant. These will be separate checks. So yep, that's taken care of ahead of time. And the following day we call to hear how it went. So this is where we get that feedback on the date. That's really where we get that information and what we need to bring back to the drawing board.
So how often is the information you're getting from the two people similar? Just curious, right?
Yeah.
Oh, he was great. I want to see him again. And he's like, never again. I don't want to see that person again.
Man. I mean, I would say if I were to, I would say half of the time my clients want to see each other again.
Okay. That seems like
How
a good,
about
that
how
seems like a
about
good number.
Kathy's example where, one person says it's great and the other person doesn't? Is that the other 50% of the time or?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
generally. Yep. And I mean, of course, there's varying levels of like wanting to see them again.
Yeah.
There's I'm open to going on a second date. There's I can't wait to see them again. That was like the best date in forever.
Yeah.
So again, half the time there's some level of willingness to go on that second date.
And then is second date taken care of? Do you guys do that too? Or is it once they've second date
mostly, there are some memberships that include that feature, but for the most part, they'll be taking care of that.
Yeah, they take it from there.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then either they come back and say, let's go again,
or
not.
Exactly. You've been doing this for so long. Do you ever encourage people, like if I went on a first date and I was like, Anna, I just wasn't feeling it, to like be open if you've gotten a lot of like feedback from this particular individual? Do you encourage people to go on a second date, or are you just like, it's done?
I may encourage them to go to look at coaching, to purchasing a coaching program, because that seems like it's going to be a little bit more expensive. If they're giving, if they're saying no to most everybody that they meet, that
there's other stuff.
There's other stuff going on.
Well, it does seem the dating coaches who are, on Instagram and TikTok and whatever, for people who are dating on the apps, tend to say you should do a second date. If you're like, nah, maybe not, I'm not sure, they're like, you should do it again. But it seems like this matchmaking is taking all that stuff out of the equation. So it's almost like you're on a second date already, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm just curious. Yeah.
I mean, I never thought of it that way, but that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. I do think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, it's really like raising that bar. Like we are doing all the filtering behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So, it's again, those chances of a connection are going to be much higher than if you were just chatting with someone online, and you're not going to know if your values are in line or if your personalities might click. It's a little bit more tricky.
And you're making an investment in it. Whereas, a lot of these dating apps are free. And even if you pay for a subscription, it's probably not as costly as this. Right. So it's saying, I really want to find a connection.
Yeah, exactly. The investment itself is like a bit of a double-edged sword, right? But it's what makes it work so well because of the quality of the people that, you'd be meeting through the service.
What about, everyone's talking about The Golden Bachelor. It clearly did not work out.
I know.
As a matchmaker, what would you have maybe done differently? What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes these things just don't work out. Seemed like a really good fit.
Did it though, Natalie? I'm going to hold the other end of this dialectic.
Maybe she didn't watch it as deeply as we did. Possible.
I didn't watch the show. I just saw the articles. Yeah, I just kind of read the articles.
You didn't need to watch it.
No.
Did you watch the young people's version of The Bachelor?
I've gotten into it, every now and then, but I've never been like a raving consistent fan of it. No.
What about the show Matchmaker? Isn't there a show Matchmaker too?
I do like the matchmaker shows. I do, like the Jewish matchmaker, the Indian matchmaker, the millionaire matchmaker. I can absolutely get down with those. I can really relate to the work they're doing. And I also enjoy the Love is Blind show.
Yeah, that seems to be a hot topic right now.
So what is it about Love is Blind that you love?
Well, so our dates, they do not see photos ahead of time.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting.
So I do think the show, it is missing a very important element, right? Which is the physical attraction. But I really appreciate that the initial impression is not the physical first. And so it just, for me to compartmentalize the two, to be able to see proof, right, that we can have an emotional connection before a physical connection, it just really reinforces our model to be able to, discern for both right when you meet that person.
That's really interesting. So no photo. Do you have, so you might say, what are you attracted to your clients,
Exactly.
right?
Yep,
and then have
I
a sense of
the
that.
photos. Yep. And again, kind of that bird's eye view while they're giving feedback after their dates. I start to, get a sense of it, but there's been many, many, many times where I've made matches, or my team, I should say, we've made matches that maybe I thought to myself in my head, that's not his idea of attractive. That's not her idea of attractive. Me thinking, I think they'll have a nice time, but boom, we're done here. Like, this is it. So that chemistry, and of course, the compatibility that can come into play, which is so very cool to see.
How long typically does one sign up to be with the matchmaker? Like what's the duration sort of the experience for the most part?
It varies. I know I can never really give black and white answers. Yeah. It's difficult too. The biggest thing, that's why I always encourage my clients to stay the course, because you could be the lucky one where it happens very early on in your membership, right? You're the client that I've been waiting for, or, he's been waiting for. So, or, it could be the other way around, where let's just say he's been dating with us for months, and this woman comes along to my service, and I say immediately, yes, like this is his girl, right? I think we've found it. So it could be her first date, right? Yeah. Which we call one and done. Or, it could be for him, he's been waiting and waiting and waiting to meet someone like her. So it varies.
And if someone's sort of not with you anymore, they were with you last year or something, and they didn't find somebody, and somebody walks in, you're like, oh my God, that person should be with that person. Do you dial them up and see if they're available, or does that happen?
Happens. Yeah, that can happen occasionally. I definitely have moments of that. I had a client not too long ago. She's in her early 70s, and she lives a little bit outside of the norm. And it was actually a really cool story. I thought of the gentleman randomly for her. This is another moment of like, not during working hours, right? This was like, I'm just thinking about this client of mine, and who should I have her meet, and I thought of him. I had not spoken with him or worked with him for like 3 years. Turns out it's his birthday, the day I call him, for this woman. And we made it happen, and they had a phenomenal date. So, they were both geographically kind of outside the norm and had a lot of similar hobbies. They both had more conservative values, very outdoorsy. So it just kind of hit me. Wow. And that's always fun.
Yeah. Again. All right. Well, why don't you give us your contact info and where they can find you? Can people specifically reach out to you, Natalie, or do you just call the general number? Or
if you call the general number and you say my name, they will give you right to me.
So, Natalie, thank you so much for joining us today. This was great. We learned a lot. Samantha?
Yeah. Oh, I can't say enough. I'm super impressed. I didn't quite realize the similarities between like therapy and being a matchmaker.
Uh-oh. I feel a new career coming.
In retirement, I think I might try it.
Oh goodness. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun.
Thanks. Thanks for your time, and happy matchmaking. All right. Well, that was interesting, Samantha. What did you think of that conversation?
Yeah, it was interesting. I agree. I've sat with people who've used a matchmaker. Friends of mine have used a matchmaker, but I've never actually talked with a matchmaker personally to find out about the process.
It was still a little vague to me, though, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I really appreciated her genuineness about, hey, look, I can't just whip up a man for you. And so I definitely think there are pros and cons to using this kind of service.
Just like there would be for any way you're going to date. There's no guarantee that
someone else is going to
find you the perfect match.
Yeah. And I think that's the great summary. There's no guarantee someone else can find you a better match than you could find. And it really has to do with access to people, people that are willing to pay for this service.
From what I could tell, the bottom line you're going to pay for this is maybe $500 or $1,000, and all the way up to lots and lots and lots, 5 digits.
Yeah. Yeah.
So depending
I actually
on what
thought it was even higher than that. So I'm surprised it was that low in your research.
I would imagine that if a matchmaking service has more women than men, it's going to cost men less to participate in it, right? Because they need them to participate. I don't know. I mean, I'm speculating here. But in some of the stuff I read, some men did negotiate the cost, which was interesting. It was a story in the New York Times. But they were young. These were younger people. They weren't our age. So I don't know that we'll link to it. You can Google it and probably find it. But yeah, it's interesting. And I mean, I guess the advantage of using a matchmaker would be you would be spending less time looking for matches, right? They set it up for you, make it all happen. And I suppose if you have a lot of money and you don't have the time, maybe it's a way to go.
I definitely think that was one of the cons for me. Not that I have those resources, or actually, let's be clear, I do have those resources.
Yeah,
I want to. I want to spend it doing other things.
Right.
But that was one of the things where I was really tuning in. Like, they do some weeding, they arrange the dates, right? They pick the location that's convenient for both of you. And I really, that all sounded really attractive to me. I just don't know if I can pay those fees for that. And I was just gonna say, and the no guarantee, right? I am someone, like, if I'm gonna spend, $3,000 to $5,000, I want to, like, a 5-year guarantee on the paint job on my house, right? Or I want to guarantee
money back, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I guess also if you have the means and you're very nervous about dating, or the whole world kind of freaks you out, it would certainly be more personalized. You could have more, it's like someone's holding your hand through your dating that's not your friend, but who can give you some feedback or can help you with your anxieties around dating. So
I agree. And the coaching aspect, if you are someone who's never been in a relationship, this ability to access a coach to help you kind of adult through that process, I think would be really helpful.
You could also dial up a coach without a matchmaking service.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
You could do that. Yeah. I mean, but I guess they're sort of personalized services.
Yes.
There are quite a few of them, and you can Google them and find them. And what I would suggest you do is, if you're into doing this, is to call them and talk to them and see what the deal is, because there's not much online. It's very vague. The prices aren't there. How many men to women ratio? None of that information. I don't even know if some of them cater to non-straight people. Like, it's just not clear. So
yeah. That's what I really love what you're saying, Kathy. I agree. Just like they're interviewing you, like, how Natalie talked a lot about interviewing and getting all your information. You're also interviewing them to kind of weigh the pros and cons yourself to decide, is this worth it?
Yeah, it's a lot of money. So you do know somebody who's used a matchmaking service?
Yes,
one of these ones that you can find online.
Our good friend did it, and she's a professional, a woman who really just was looking for support. I mean, her job is she works a lot of hours, and I think she was looking to outsource it. So she was like, "All right, I'll pay money for that." And I'm all about the outsourcing, but I think for me, I want a guarantee. And so she went on, I think, like 8 dates.
8?
And
okay,
they set her up with 8 dates, and she was really disappointed in the caliber of the men that they were matching her with. And I think she was providing them with feedback around these men, like, social skills deficits, things like that. And so just never worked for her. And she just gave up on it after 8 dates. And, and I think because you're paying this fee, like, they would have probably kept trying to set her up on dates. I think she wasn't feeling very hopeful. And so she kind of gave up. I had a client who did it for 2 dates. And again, this client had really specific like, so again, if I were, a conservative and I wanted to date another conservative, if you only have two conservative people in your
Right.
book of business, right? Yeah. It might not be a match. And so she was very disappointed in the in the type of people. And then one other person did it, and they had some really funny stories. And again, they had paid a rather, hefty fee, within thousands of dollars. And on this third date, she felt like the person really wasn't putting forth much effort in the date, like, listening or making conversations or really interested in getting to know her. And she said, "Hey, are you, like, what's going on here? Like, I feel like you're not into this." Like, and that the guy owned that he didn't even pay for the service.
Right.
Like, he was really roped into it and really didn't want to do it. And so at the point she was like, "Well, I'm just done," So to me, it boils down with whatever you do, right? And this is, I think you and I in conversation have talked more and more about this, and neighbor Jake and I think you need to know what it is you're looking for. I think you really need to know what it is you want. And I think more importantly than knowing what you want and knowing what you're looking for, you have to be okay by yourself.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, you have to be. Yeah, you have to love yourself.
Yeah,
or have date yourself, as they say.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're busy dating ourselves right now.
Yes,
it's all going well.
It is going well. It is going well. And in true Samantha fashion, in dating myself, I pick up more women. Mm-hmm. Like, I just keep picking up women. So yeah. So
women and gay men. That's me. But I love it. It's great. Yeah. It's all good.
As always, thank you for listening to Rust Belt Love.
Be sure to follow and subscribe, rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. And you can find us on Instagram at rblovepod, RBLOVEPOD.com.
We love hearing from our listeners. And if you've used a matchmaker, reach out, or you have something else you're interested in, please give us some feedback, and you can reach out to us on Instagram.
And until the next time.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Love.